Five things that can eat your profits, part five. Welcome to Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf. This is part five of the series that we've been doing on five things that can eat your profits, common mistakes that entrepreneurs are making as they are implementing the changes that they need to adapt their businesses for you as you're adapting your business to today's chaotic economy. And chaos is probably a polite way of putting it, right? Everything's been happening over the last 2.5 years. We're going to have some more chaos coming in the future. Just in terms of economic uncertainty, inflation is still with us, going to stay with us, even if the rate of inflation slows down, as some indicating encouraging signs. A little cautious optimism may be warranted that the rate of increase is not as high. High prices are still going to stick with us. We're still way, way above where we were 2 years ago on pricing. Supply chain disruptions continue, and we've got an interesting fall coming up. The five things that we've been talking about, the five mistakes that we've been talking about, are based in part in response to what Ken Blanchard companies reveal from their research that 70% of the change initiatives, which is just MBA speak for attempts to adapt, to put something new in place, to shift what you're doing, 70% of those efforts in businesses in America fail. So imagine it. That's trillions of dollars left on the table in our economy. That's thousands or hundreds of thousands or perhaps millions of dollars on the table for you in your business. And we can come back to more on, well, what does exactly that mean? Here's what I wanted to talk with you today on part five. So we've done four already. This is the fifth one in this series of the five most common things, five most common mistakes entrepreneurs make, so that you can avoid this, right? You don't want to be one of the entrepreneurs that's making this mistake. So here's one. When bringing in new tools and processes to your business, how are you deploying those? What are your plans for how to use that? How do you get competitive advantage from that tool? For example, is a hammer in construction, as a carpenter, or perhaps, if you're doing something around the house, around where you live, is a hammer just a hammer for driving nails? Is that always the best tool? Is that the only way to drive a nail into a 2x4? Because in construction, there's a time to use a hammer and there's a time to use a nail gun when you need to do more faster. So it's automating the process, semi-automating the process by making it possible to install more nails faster. Right? So it's picking the right tool, adapting it to the right application. We want to go deeper with that, though. Typically in software, let me back up a step. Think of a surgical team. Where you're going into the operating room, or someone in your family, someone you care deeply about, is being wheeled into the operating room, there's a team that goes into the operating room, correct? Do you want to see the anesthesiologist step away to take a phone call? And a surgeon say, well, let's go ahead anyway. All right. A big part of the process that's missing there. Now, would that happen? Hopefully never, right? I'm pretty confident that doesn't happen. Maybe somewhere in the world, something like that happens and they decide to move ahead without all the right people. Maybe a little bit more common might be if there's 3 nurses that need to be involved, 3 RNs in the operating room as support team, as part of the team, that one of them is missing, one is not able to be part of it, and they decide to go ahead. So they're one short on the team. Especially if it's a new surgical procedure, something that hasn't been done before, or, right, this is someone you care about that's going into surgery. Hopefully they've done this before, but perhaps it's relatively new and they haven't done a whole lot. So having that extra set of hands and eyeballs and experience on the team is necessary because it's a newer process, right? So think about that. It's having the right people involved. Coming back to software, so use software as an example. So there's a lot of times companies buy software and they install it in an accounting system, a CRM system where you're managing customer data. What is it about that piece of software that is, as a tool, is going to give you competitive advantage in the marketplace? And are you just taking it out of the box and installing it? Now, larger companies tend to customize. Why do they do that? Because they get competitive advantage. There's things that they wanted to do that they know will make them be able to perform in some way that's unique, that's better than, delivers more value than. their competitors. Now, that's not always an affordable option, but even if you say you're using an accounting system like QuickBooks, and I have no affiliation with QuickBooks. I'm not recommending them, just using it as an example because it's very popular. You've likely at least heard it if you haven't heard of QuickBooks. If you haven't used QuickBooks in your business, it's one accounting software like QuickBooks. It typically has a lot of different modules that you can add, that you can purchase and put in place. That's one way of customizing without getting into the super expensive part of having custom software written as part of it. Are you buying the right modules to give you competitive advantage, or are you just buying the least that you can spend, minimizing the spend on investment in that piece of software so that it does a thing for you? You got to look at the broader process, and again, answer the question of what gives you competitive advantage in delivering value to your customers, making the job easier for your team, the people that are on, the people that are on your team. How's it support doing their job, making their lives easier so that they can focus on the higher value tasks that they're good at, that you need them to do. So it's being able to adapt that. That's not being adaptive, not thinking that through. And this ties into the other 4 that we've talked about. If you haven't seen those, or you need to brush up, go back through our videos on that. We're keeping these to less than 12 minutes, I believe, on most of them. One might have gone over a little bit. So think about that. It's adapting the tool. Now, being able to adapt the tool correctly, this is a 2-part answer. This is the second part, and do not miss this. Get something to write with. Do not miss this. Have all the right people represented on the team that's involved in putting in place this new thing. If you've got only 5 people in your company, all 5 people need to be involved in making a change like this, in picking it, getting it installed, getting trained. It may seem like a big investment, and it is. It's even bigger investment. It's a bigger waste of money, huge cost, bigger impact on your profit if you don't. Right? You need to have all the right people involved. And typically what can be missing is having somebody, as your company grows, if you've got 30, 35 employees, 200 employees, a common mistake on having the team that's involved in installing the new tool is not having users hands-on frontline. And that may sound crazy. It happens more than you would believe, especially in bigger organizations. Yes. But think about this. How does this apply to you? How can this become an error? What would it look like in your business if, say, you've got 35 people on your team? Right? Could it be that someone that's customer facing, someone that's dealing with the customer, not a customer service role, that isn't involved because they're not directly involved with the software that's being installed? Maybe they aren't even going to directly use it. But again, the whole point of putting a new tool in, the whole point of adapting your business is to get competitive advantage in delivering value to your customers. So if you're missing someone that has direct customer contact, you're missing information that could be crucial. And there's no guarantee that there wouldn't be a piece of information. How much does it cost you if it is missing? Right? It immediately puts you in that 70% that never get the value of the investment and the change made. Never realized the business value that was anticipated when making that change, as Ken Blanchard companies research shows. So think about that, and having the right people, or as Jim Collins puts it, the right seats, right people in the right seats on the bus. You need to have the right people on that team in order to have the right information, the right insight. And here's why. Think about this. Small business owner that's a colleague of mine based on me, he goes, you know what? Something that changed my business happened at breakfast. One day I'm sitting at breakfast watching my daughter use her cell phone to text a friend of hers. And it dawned on me that I had never, ever seen her use her cell phone as a phone. Think about that. How often have you seen that? How often do you see people talking on the phone, on a cell phone, versus texting, videoing, doing using it as a camera, using it as a web browser, using it as a video player? And it dawned on him that he was completely missing a whole generation in terms of being able to market his business. Now, his daughter was a teenager at the time, wasn't part of his target market, but he looked at it and he goes, key point, key miss understanding of how a huge percentage of the population that, if not currently qualifying to be a customer, because he was in the mortgage and finance industry, right? So the under 20 set, under 20 years of age, traditionally, those have not been the core of home buyers. They will eventually, though. They'll get older, and to build relationships with them in advance in order to be able to market to them effectively, got to be able to accommodate that. So it dawned on him that he needed to understand where that habit and that use of the cell phone. Now, how broad was that in the marketplace? What age groups did that affect? Was he missing currently a part of his market because he didn't understand how they were using technology? So if you don't have the right people involved in, sticking with the software example, the software you're selecting, how it's going to be used and implemented within the company, you will miss key insights into how the technology can be used in a different way, because different age groups, different people with different experiences, levels of experience, will use the software differently. It's like Steve Jobs being forced out of Apple, right? Co-founder of Apple in the 1970s, I want to say it was 75, 77, somewhere around there, forced out of the company in around 1985, brought back into the company in 1997, 98, completely changed the company because he brought a different perspective back in on how the technology was used in people's lives. That was his brilliance in the company. So make sure you got the right people involved and that you are adapting the tool in the most powerful way to deliver more value to your customer, thereby getting competitive advantage for your business. It's the whole point for investing in tools and processes that you use in your business, right? And you want to have a growing business, right? You don't want to become one of the 70% that never get that result. In fact, you really want to become one of the 5%, one of the 1% that just absolutely knock it out of the park, just get huge advantage, that become, an Apple type of a company within your marketplace, within your market niche, where people are going, this is the company we want to do business with because they're fun to be around. They deliver tons of value. They get us as customers. Apple has people that are willing to wait 2 days for a new phone that they don't really need and pay a healthy premium for it. Want to develop customers like that, right? So outserve, out-deliver value compared to your competition. Be the choice for your customers. And that's part of how to do that. So that's part 5. Thanks for being part of Wolf's Watch. Are you making it a fabulous Friday? I hope so. If not, get busy with that. Enjoy the journey. Thanks for being part of Wolf's Watch. Glad you're part of the conversation. And I will see you on the trail.